and it did balance the budget. You've got to have control of the
taxes, which is how they balance the budget. But they raised taxes. I mean, that is how Bill.
Not that much.
But
which got no Republicans.
Zero votes.
No. And put the economy.
Not back to the 70% it was under Ronald.
No.
Well, who is going to raise taxes back to 70%? The thing that worries.
Thank you.
I don't think Republicans will ever turn on Trump because Paul Ryan has made it pretty clear that he is going to use Trump's right hand, as he right-handed, to get the things that Paul Ryan wants.
Right.
And Paul Ryan essentially wants to repeal the 20th century. He wants to privatize Social Security if he can, gut Medicare, gut Medicaid, gut food stamps, essentially throw the poor onto the mercy of charities and churches, turn everything into a fistful of vouchers, a voucher for you to go to school, which you're not going to have to pay for because Ms. DeVos wants to privatize it, a voucher for you to buy health insurance. Good luck if the voucher isn't enough for you to pay for a policy that can actually help you when you're really sick. And that fistful of vouchers strategy, they can throw it on Trump and say, well, Trump signed it. And then,
do you really want to bankrupt Social Security?
Are you kidding? Social Security, that's the biggest myth that Republicans push. Social Security is not going to be bankrupt. Social Security has a 7-year lifespan. You say that because you want to privatize it. You guys have been doing that since the past. You never wanted it. Republicans have never wanted it to exist.
As the political landscape continues to shift under the weight of Donald Trump's presidency, few discussions capture the raw tension of the GOP's internal struggle quite like a heated exchange between Bill Maher and Reid. On Maher's late-night panel, the conversation turned to the Republican Party's uneasy alliance with Trump, with both liberals and conservatives weighing in on the party's willingness to abandon its long-held principles in favor of political survival. At the heart of the discussion was the GOP's reluctance to stand up to Trump, particularly figures like Paul Ryan, who once positioned himself as a beacon of conservative ideology, but ultimately folded under Trump's dominance. Maher, never one to hold back, pressed Reid on whether the Republican establishment was complicit in Trump's rise, or if they had simply been exposed for what they always were. From fiscal conservatism to entitlement programs, the debate highlighted the deep fractures within the Republican Party, as well as the broader implications for American politics. With comparisons to Reaganomics and Bush-era tax policies, the conversation underscored a stark reality. The party that once championed small government and fiscal responsibility now seemed more willing than ever to embrace massive spending, corporate tax cuts, and social program rollbacks, all under the banner of Trumpism. Was this the inevitable evolution of the GOP, or was Trump merely a passing storm that the party hoped to weather? Maher and Reid's debate laid bare the ideological contradictions at play, leaving the question hanging, was there any Republican left willing to take a stand?
Look, when we got to the 1980s...
You don't want it to exist?
No, I do want it to get it.
Oh, you do?
Heck, I'm going to be on it. But listen, how much is our debt here? What, $22 trillion?
Down under Obama.
No, he added $8 trillion to this. The point is, if we bankrupt the country, then we are going to do this.
That you Donald Trump has given up on
cutting the deficit and the debt. He doesn't even talk about the debt. He doesn't even pretend to be a fiscal conservative. He basically said, look, here he stands up there and he's going to say, we're not going to touch any of the entitlement programs. Joy and I disagree on this.
So Donald Trump and Joy agree, isn't that?
Yes, but he goes out and he says, yes, but we'll cut foreign aid. Or we're going to cut the National Endowment for the Arts. Because those are big spending items.
You could not find with a jeweler's eye if you look in the budget.
Yeah. It's complete magical thinking. I mean, listening to Trump's speech a couple days ago, I was, we're going to have dying industries will roar back to life. We will just unleash our dreams and make it happen. I thought, whoa, and Tinkerbell's going to come down, too.
Lower the oceans. Lower the rise of the oceans.
Kind of like Trump University.
Well, at least...
The tone and perspective of this discussion reflect a progressive-leaning critique of both Donald Trump and the modern Republican Party, exposing deep ideological fractures within the conservative movement. The conversation, particularly in the way Bill Maher frames the issues, positions Trump as a figure who has reshaped the GOP, forcing many of its leaders into an uneasy alliance that compromises traditional conservative values. Maher and his panelists depict the GOP as a party that once claimed to stand for fiscal conservatism, small government, and national security, but has instead embraced Trump's brand of populist nationalism. There is an underlying frustration, not just with Trump himself, but with the enablers within the Republican establishment who, in the eyes of the commentators, have sacrificed principle for power. A fractured Republican Party at a crossroads is one of the most interesting aspects of the discussion. While Trump still commands unwavering loyalty from some factions, other conservatives are deeply uncomfortable with his leadership, yet unwilling or unable to fully break away.
I know that's a big laugh line for you, slowing the rise of the oceans. It's not funny. Well, the fact that the oceans are rising and getting not just warmer but more acidic,
did
correct,
he do it?
Bill? Of course he did. He did make a start with the Paris Climate Accord. You know how hard that is to get 200 countries to sign on to something? And now your idiot is going to rescind it. But yes, did he do it? No, he didn't do it in the time he was in office.
8 years. That's good.
Okay,
Yes.
we're talking about carbon in the atmosphere. It took 200 years to get there.
Well, then why did he say he could do it?
He didn't say. He said we're going to begin to slow the rise of the oceans.
Your guy.
And he didn't.
He did, if you count.
Your guy wants to speed it up. I mean, this afternoon, that one of the things that Obama did that was very smart was manage to get through the mileage regulations that said that we would be by the middle of the next decade be having averaging 50 miles to the gallon or 54 or whatever for cars. Something that technologically we're completely able to do without any problem. I mean, we live in a world where, say, Norway has announced that all cars will be electric there by within 5 years. Today it became clear.
Isn't that where Nordstrom's is?
Today it became clear that the EPA was not only going to gut that, not only going to take back, at the request of the automakers, take that back, they're talking about taking away the one thing that's really California's particular ability. California is the one state that has its own ability to regulate pollution.
But Jeff,
and take that away.
In general, I asked this of Bill before we brought it up. You know, you do believe in theory, of course, I'm guessing, of things that we can't see, like germs and atoms.
God.
Bill Maher and his painless criticized Trump's stance on climate change, particularly his decision to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, a move seen as an abandonment of global efforts to combat an existential crisis. The conversation highlights the dangerous intersection of politics and science, where evidence-based research is dismissed in favor of populist rhetoric and corporate interest. A particularly damning revelation comes in the discussion of Exxon's internal knowledge of climate change dating back to the 1970s, proving that major fossil fuel companies were aware of the environmental consequences of carbon emissions, even as they publicly funded skepticism and denial. The debate over scientific consensus versus skepticism draws comparisons to evolution and the shape of the Earth, reinforcing the absurdity of denying climate change despite overwhelming empirical evidence. As the Trump administration moves to roll back California's environmental regulations, the discussion frames the battle as not just about policy, but about the fundamental choice between accepting scientific reality or succumbing to willful ignorance. The message is clear. While the effects of climate change intensify, denial is no longer just misguided, it is catastrophic.
Okay, so then by that logic, global warming, we can't really see it, although we see its effects all the time.
Bill, all I'm saying, I'm a skeptic, not I don't say hoax.
But scientists aren't.
Right. Well, see, but
scientists aren't.
Bill, this is the problem, as I see it, is that too much politics has infected all sorts of sectors of our society, including science. I want the science.
No.
When I hear the term that 97% of the whatever scientists and have reached a consensus, Bill, is a political word. It is not a scientific word. There is, wait, is there a consensus that the Earth is round?
It can be both.
Whether there is or not, it's a fact.
But you do understand that the scientific method is that if you do an experiment 100 times and you get the same result 99 times,
Then I'm gonna
you
join
get a
the consensus.
99% consensus
Here's what
that
they
this
mean
is
by
true.
Here's what they mean by
That's what they
consensus.
did, right?
Like when Darwin published Origin of the Species in 1859, it was many decades before there was a consensus about it, because the other scientists in the world were like, well, that's interesting. Let's see if we can prove it
That's right.
wrong. That's how science works. And after many decades, they were like,
Yep.
well, we can't. Darwin's right.
Right, that's right.
And now we're at that point with this
In
particular
this case,
issue.
in this case, we were at it a long time ago.
Yes,
good
we were at it a
investigative
long
reporting. Listen, good investigative reporting in the last 2 years has shown that
Right.
Exxon knew everything there was to know about climate change by 1977 to 1981. Their scientists were telling their senior management exactly how much it was going to warm, and their senior management was taking it seriously. They began building their drilling rigs to
By the
compensate
way,
for the rise in
Rex
sea level they knew
Tillerson-
would come.
Rex Tillerson of Exxon is the one who doesn't want to pull out of the Paris Climate.
That's right. That
The
tells you.
Exxon guy is
He's
our
the-
best hope.
He's the mad dog Mattis.
And who appointed him?
There's a reason.
What do you think about the ongoing debate? The Republican Party's stance on Trump and the future of conservative values? Do you believe the GOP has truly abandoned its principles, or is this just the natural evolution of politics? And when it comes to climate science, do you think skepticism is justified, or is it simply a dangerous rejection of reality? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below, and let's keep the conversation going. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching,